When did I grow aware of being chosen? Perhaps as the source set about speaking within me, not in words but in revelations which language can only confine. Once I glimpsed the face behind the sky, while the noonday sun blinded everyone about me to its galactic vastness, and on another day I sensed how the world resembles a fruit full of worms which once were men. Perhaps that vision was my first step toward my goal. A succession of funerals helped set me on my course. Grandparent after grandparent gave up the ghost, as the ignorant were wont to term it more accurately than they could know. Each funeral showed me how the dead were being misused, abandoned when there were still qualities to offer. The rites were as ponderously solemn as the plodding of the horses which drew the hearse, and far more ineffectual. Every open grave I had to stand beside was a gateway to knowledge which nobody other than I appeared to realize was there to be tapped. As mourners dropped earth on the coffin, it sounded very much like knocking on a door, as I imagined how terrified the priest and his little congregation would be if any opened in the earth. Each cemetery ceremony let me sense the dormant dead everywhere around the latest grave, though my impressions fell short of grasping their state. I was 9 when I set out to discover what was being wasted in the graves. I could see that my father was touched by my visiting his mother's, not least because he rightly thought I disliked her. He saw me across the road from our house and watched me from as far as the cemetery entrance. My ideas were imprecise, and I thought the bouquet which I laid on my grandmother's grave might help to entice her out of the dark beneath the sunlight. Wherever this inkling of the true right came from, I failed to interpret it correctly, and once I was sure that nobody else was nearby, I began to call her name. When this had no effect, I tried envisioning her as she must be, boxed and supine, and then urging her to rise to the surface in that form. I held that in my mind until twilight settled on the graveyard. Then I felt my mind catch hold of something more solid than the vision, and the plot of earth began to stir, quivering the flowers that leaned against the headstone. Perhaps this was simply a distortion of the air, because a colourless shape, less substantial than water but denser than mist, was seeping out of the grave. It was nearly the length of the mound and not much less wide, and was struggling to take more of a shape. Unmatched limbs, undivided wads for hands, a head without features or hair. All at once it gave up the effort and drained back into the earth. I tried to retrieve it with my mind, and instantly my grandmother's face stretched up out of the mound. It had no colour, and resembled a thin, flat mask, no broader than the gravestone, but as tall as I am now. Perhaps all this was why, or partly why, it was howling like a tortured beast. I imagine only I would have been able to see or hear it, but it brought me to the brink of panic, not least for fear that somebody might blame me for its presence. I fought to let go with my mind, but even when I succeeded, the elongated face took some time to sink with a series of shudders into the earth. I heard its subterranean howls of outrage as I bolted from the graveyard, indeed, all the way to the house. Even I was too young to welcome the encounter.